Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome in, everybody. Happy Friday to you. TGIF here on Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Chad Chambers producing. Glad to be here with you, getting you ready for a football weekend, getting you ready for a night of college basketball and a night of high school football entering the third round of the playoffs. A lot going on here in our part of the world this time of year, and we're excited to be here with you. Lots of fun stuff coming today on the program. You can call us on the IHOP hotline, which, of course, is brought to you by IHOP. This Veterans Day, IHOP welcoming veterans and active duty military free red, white, and blueberry pancakes to thank them for their service. That's on November 11th. On that IHOP hotline, we'll give away some movie tickets to the Hunger Games, a sneak peek of that next Thursday, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That's Thursday night at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. We'll give away some HTO, iced tea, and coffee today, and we'll get you ready for the weekend. We've got Wyatt Thompson joining us in our next segment here, the voice of the Wildcats, to preview football, to preview basketball tonight as well for K-State, playing game number 2, as is KU. Paul Savage will be in hour number 2 to make some picks with us. We'll go through the standings there. Everybody's, either doing well or getting hot in our picks, so we'll go over all that for you as well. Tommy, I mentioned those movie tickets. I'm about halfway through that book, and it's really, really good.
When do you have time to read books? Like, I wonder that. Like, I've got kids like you do. I have no time to sit down and read a book.
That's it, at night. Like, that's so for like, I don't know, an hour at the end of each night, I've been trying to power through that thing because it's a library book, so it's got to go back. So you kind of have to. But I'll tell you that, rather than watch the end of the Thursday night football game last night, I dug into a book. So that
probably a better choice.
Yeah. It was a close game. I got nothing for it, though. I was locked into the Shockers, though, Tommy, in game number 2. And I think that's probably the place to start last night. That was a really interesting game against Western Kentucky.
Yeah, it was. Thanks for the lead in on that. No, it was a very interesting game. They didn't look great in the first half. It really took like the very end of the first half for the Shockers to kind of get back into it. Did they ever
look great in it? That's sort of my takeaway. Like,
they made a run. They made a run in the second half, to get back into the lead. They turned the ball over way too much. That was, an issue that, I think they didn't really deal with in game number 1 against Lipscomb, but the turnover bug hit them last night against Western Kentucky. But they made up for it in rebounding. We talked about it yesterday on the show. If this team can rebound well, then they're going to be okay. And I think that was a large part of it.
They were out-rebounded last night, and Western Kentucky had 22 offensive boards. So, Western Kentucky took a whole lot of shots and didn't hit very many of them.
Right.
Western Kentucky in the game, Tommy, took 81 shots. 81 to Wichita State's 54. And Wichita State, so file that away. They turned the ball over 19 times to Western Kentucky's 7. They were out-rebounded in the game, and they won. And I'm having a hard time with what I take away from that. I don't know. Because in a lot of ways, they were outplayed, right? But they won, and they won. They covered the number. They won by a decent margin, 71-61, all these things. That's pretty crazy. They didn't shoot free throws well. They only shot 57% from free throw, which is also not a good thing. Like, so many things went poorly. Western Kentucky, the glaring thing for them, of course, 0 for 21.
Right.
That's the big one for Western Kentucky. So as I sit here and I look at this game, I was as I'm watching, thinking the same thing. Like, man, how are they up? At the late in the game, 7, 8, 9, 10 points. They're being like, and it wasn't, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying they were like out hustled or out, effort. It wasn't any of that. Both teams brought it. Like, the energy level in that game was intense and high, and good. Like, it was a really fun game to watch, but like with so many things, like I cannot figure out as I'm watching it, how they're still leading because Western Kentucky was doing so many things. Better.
Yeah. I think that one of the things to keep in mind also is that Colby Rogers got into foul trouble in the second half. That was another, negative. And so I think, tip your cap a little bit to Paul Mills for being able to kind of withstand everything that was going against the Shockers in the game last night. You mentioned the rebounds, and I know that Western Kentucky out-rebounded them and got a lot of offensive rebounds. The Shockers, I felt like, and maybe more like specifically guys like Dalen Rignall rebounded the ball really, really well. And I'm going to be positive here for a second, and I know there were some negatives last night, but I love the combination of Isaac Abide and Dalen Rignall off the bench. I like the energy that both of them give off the bench. I think that they provide a spark when the team needs a spark the most. I like that formula of having those two guys coming off the bench, and just with the motors that they have, being able to, come in and change things up for the team whenever they enter into a game. So I do like that quite a bit. But yeah, Colby Rogers in foul trouble, the turnover bug bit them. And you mentioned the 0 for 21 3-point shooting from Western Kentucky. That's not going to happen normally, right? Like that. I don't know the last time that a team went 0 for against the Shockers shooting threes. And, I think that there were a couple of scenarios where they defended the three really well. And I think there were a few scenarios where Western Kentucky just didn't make their shots, so it's kind of a mixed bag altogether. But again, a tip of the cap to Paul Mills for weathering that storm and not only getting them back into the game, because they were down for a good part of the first half, coming back in, taking the lead, never giving it back up, and then, of course, covering the number.
I absolutely love that they won the game. I love that they overcame all of those things. I think those are things that they will absolutely be able to use early in this season. There's no question. They did play poorly, and they still won. And I think there's value in that if you take the proper things away from it, right?
Right.
I love – look, Xavier Bell's assertiveness is so awesome to see. Like you have this – it's almost like, and I want to say it this way, and maybe I'm so proud of him, right? Because we watched him as a high schooler, and we watched him, he came back, and then, it seemed like he was just a little behind the game at this level. And then this year, not at all. Like he is taking control. Getting to the line 10 times is a big reason why the Shockers won that game. When they needed buckets, he was getting to the free throw line. He and others, but he was making his. And, that is really interesting to see his development this year. Harlan Beverly is a wild man, continues to be a wild man. They brought it up on the broadcast. Like he is in some capacity on like every single play. 4 steals, a block, 3 assists, and 6 turnovers. Like he's in on everything in one way or the other. And I do think that he'll get under control a little bit. I think probably right now there is a little pressure because he and everybody knows like we got to have, we're thin at guard. Right? Like that's just going to be the way it is. And so I do think there's some of that playing in, but I still like, I think when you go through again, like all the things we just listed off, right? The Shockers didn't shoot it well from 3. They really didn't shoot it well from the free throw line. They were out rebounded. They turned it over almost 20 times, like all of these things. And they won by 10. And I'm just like, what does that mean? Right? Does it mean they have a lot of mistakes to clean up and you need to see that happen? Of course it does. Does it mean they have the DNA to overcome that stuff? It would appear that they do, at least at first opportunity, which is a great thing, I think, early in a year to see. But it's an interesting game to look at and try to like gauge what we feel about it, because you love that they won and overcame it, but you don't love that they played poorly. I guess the biggest thing we'll see, and it's against Friends this weekend, so it's not totally fair to take an assessment from that game. But I guess we see the next time they play how they respond to it, and that's like the next thing to see for Wichita State and Paul Mills early in his career.
Yeah, I mentioned it after the opening night game against Lipscomb about how this team plays with so much energy and intensity and all of that, and that's great. You do run the risk of guys like Harlan Beverly playing out of control, right? When you play with so much pace and tempo, that you have to kind of keep that contained a little bit. Like there's a fine line between playing with tempo and playing out of control. And so as the season goes on, I think they'll get that under control a little bit more. The other thing to mention that we didn't even talk about, Kenny Poto had a double-double last night, right? 16 points, 11 rebounds.
He was great.
And, so you mentioned Xavier Bell's assertiveness and him getting to the line was a big reason they won. Kenny Poto's double-double was also another major reason that they were able to overcome all of those issues.
His leadership this year is tangible, and that's awesome to see. Look, the only thing that really like bothers me, that makes me like annoyed, is that they were out rebounded. That's it. Everything else, it's just you're sort of observing it and watching it early in the season. I don't want to see them get out rebounded by Western Kentucky. That's something that we don't need to see from that team, because that's going to have to be a strength for Wichita State. So we'll see. But we can get more into that maybe a little bit later. Coming up next, Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats, joins us on Sports Daily. Well, there's a lot to get to in Manhattan, and we'll do it next.
to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, and welcome in, everybody. Back to Sports Daily here. Looking forward to a weekly visit now with Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats. Wyatt, that was, let's just get that out of the way. That was on the short list of one of the tougher losses we've seen in the Chris Kleiman era against Texas on Saturday.
Without a doubt. And I think for a lot of reasons. You know, they didn't start very well. That's an understatement to say the least. Had only 34 yards really towards the very, very end of the first half. And not a real big part of the game, honestly. Down 17-0, and then later 27-7. But somehow showing the fight and getting back in it with, some improving defense and quite a bit of pass game, with Will Howard throwing for 327 yards and 4 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, I think a couple of things, honestly. The missed extra point with the botched extra point, whatever you want to call it, with the miscommunication, where you could go up 28-27 and don't, I thought gave Texas a little bit of life, and they went right back down and scored. And then, as you know, they had a 1st and goal at the 6 in the overtime, down 3, and couldn't punch it in, including on 4th and 4. I know the 4th down play and the call has been heavily scrutinized, and I understand it. But I think Coach Kleiman would tell you that he'd do it again, probably run the same play. And you just don't get it done when you absolutely have to right there at the very end. And I think that's what hurts, because you fought so hard to get back in the game.
Yeah, I'm with you, Wyatt. I didn't have an issue with the decision for them to go for it on 4th down and overtime. And I know I've talked to different people who have said, well, Malik Murphy was not playing well in the second half. Texas wasn't really able to do a whole lot offensively. And so, kick the field goal, tie it, and then let your defense go do, what they've done throughout the entire second half and into overtime. That being said, though, I like the aggressiveness and just the decisiveness to go for it. And I know that you mentioned that, Coach Kleiman probably would do it again and probably do the same play call again. Did you have an issue with the play that they ran, or just the entire sequence of events? If they knew they had 4 downs to get into the end zone, did you have an issue with the way that they went about that?
Well, maybe to a degree. I can't argue at all with the 4th down play after it was explained to me by the coaches who know a lot more than I do about what happened. Colin makes the play call. Coach Kleiman told me that he checked with Colin and make sure, are you good with this? We do have a timeout left, whatever. He said, no, I like it. The issue, frankly, was a couple of things. One, Texas comes out in a look that they switched right before the snap, and that covered up Ben Sennett, and he wasn't really close enough or anywhere near the goal line where they needed to be. So there is that. I would say, in that particular series, you could probably scrutinize all of the play calls, because common sense would say more times than not, even against that group, with 4 plays from 6 yards, you probably should get in there, right? I mean, that's probably the frustration of the fans too, I would think.
Yeah, it's all relative. If the play goes through and Texas doesn't get that kind of pressure, it looks like the smartest thing in the world. It's second guessing that stuff seems like semantics. I wonder though, Wyatt, before we, turn the page and look ahead, Chris Kleiman mentioned earlier in the week and really admitted that this one was going to be tougher to move on from than most. We saw a little bit of rare, inside emotion from Ben Sennett after the game. And I'm sure you've seen, that and him feeling like he needed to defend Will Howard. Do you sense any bleed through into that locker room from the way that the quarterback situation has been under a microscope all year? Or do you think that, now by Friday, a day before the next one, that they've been able to put it behind them?
Well, in all honesty, there may be a little of both there. I think you touched on something that's hugely important. I think the absolute number one goal of this team was to get back to Arlington and win a championship for a second straight year. That's never been done in the history of Kansas State football. That was all they talked about all through the spring, the summer, into the camp, and into the regular season. And that game and again, we still have 3 weeks left. I suppose mathematically you're still involved in it, but reality-wise, where you lose a tiebreaker to now Texas and Oklahoma State, and they're at the top of the league, it does not look very good. So there's frustration with that. There's frustration with, again, like we said, battling back and having an opportunity to beat a really good team, a top 10 team on the road, which, hey, let's cut to the chase here and be honest. Most teams don't win top 10 games on the road. They don't. They do occasionally, but it isn't something that happens weekly, right? So there was that. And then the Ben Sinnott thing, I didn't make too much of it. I saw the video and what have you, but what you probably need to know is those guys are really good friends and they're roommates and all of those kind of things. And I think Ben just probably was a little bit tired of all the chirping. And I don't think he necessarily meant anything harm-wise to Avery or anybody else. It's just, frustration with the loss more than anything else, from my perspective anyway.
Wyatt, when we're looking at the way that the quarterback situation has gone this season, when you've got Avery Johnson kind of pushing Will Howard and that he's the future and he's got all this talent, and then what Will Howard has done in persevering and overcoming throughout the course of his career, I think that, publicly, just the fan base in general, there's always going to be conversation about different things and, all of that. But I wonder, and I brought this up a couple times earlier this week on this show, about when the team is winning, the 2 quarterback system seems great. If the team loses, it sort of opens the door to what ifs and just people saying, well, what if Avery had been in there during that time? Or what if Will had done that? Right. Or, whatever. Do you think that there's anything at all that anybody inside the program, whether it's Chris Kleiman or Colin Klein or anybody, could have done differently to maybe mitigate that? Or is that just something that is going to come along when you've got 2 talented quarterbacks on the roster?
Well, I would lean towards the latter. I think what everybody probably should hear me say here is that I think it's a no-brainer to say that Chris Kleiman and Colin Klein love both of those kids, right? I mean, that's kind of an obvious statement. And I think the biggest thing for those guys right now is that based on what Will has been and is and continues to be, I feel like they think that because of his experience and his abilities to, check at the line of scrimmage and all of those kind of things, he's the better option right now. Not everybody is going to agree with that, and I get that. I think they get that. And I think in the same breath, they love who wouldn't love Avery's ability and what he's done. You can argue all day long whether he's gotten enough of the, playing time share or whatever. But his day's coming. And I know it's hard to be patient when you're that good and so on and so forth. And the fans, hey, I'm just being honest. They love the kid, and who wouldn't? And more times than not, if you don't win, who's the most favorite team player on the team? The number 2 quarterback. It's just kind of what it is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. It's maybe a little different than it has been in the past, because I think Will Howard's really, really good, and Avery Johnson's really, really good with a chance to be, really, really great.
Totally.
I guess the only,
Yes.
the only concern maybe that you have at this point, and I don't buy into this because I think there's always a chance Avery never played this year. Is Avery okay with these games where he's not used? Very little to none at all. And,
Sure.
And we don't know that because we don't hear from him as a freshman.
Right. Yeah. And it's a fair question. I would, let's be honest about this. I think there probably is some frustration to a degree, and yet I think he's really trying to be a team guy. I think he is a team guy. Yeah. I can't speak for his mom and dad or, his family or whatever with their frustration, but I do think that he probably kind of understands the situation that he is in. Hey, he knows as well as anybody what he brings to the table, right? I mean, yeah, that's obvious. And so there's going to be some, when you're a competitor, man, you want to be out there, whether you're in his situation or whether you're, somebody that has been nicked up and can't go for a week. That really is frustrating for those guys. I've seen it in their face. And it's just a difficult situation because they're both good guys. They're both, at least from my perspective, all about winning games. But yet there is the competition factor too, and that's always going to be there, and it should be there. That's what you want.
Wyatt, you mentioned the botched extra point in the game against Texas. You combine that with the missed field goal late in the game. Do you have any ongoing concerns with the way that the kicking game or special teams in general performed last week, and what things may look like in the future?
Well, that's another good question, I think, because I think you always are concerned when you miss, pretty much what most people would describe as a chip shot field goal. But there's a lot to it. And I guess what I appreciated the most is twofold. One, Coach Kleiman still having, just moments later after a really nice defensive stop, no issues at all with sending Chris back out there. And then Chris, having the intestinal fortitude to bang that 45-yarder through there after, just a horrible effort on the on the 25-yarder or 27, whatever it was. But I don't necessarily. I think I would say this: Coach Kleiman is one of those guys that he is going to trust in his guy, and I think he knows to his core how talented Chris is. Would he rather that he be a little more consistent like what we saw with Ty Zentner last year? Absolutely, of course. But that's not exactly how this has played out. But you got to go with what you believe is your best guy. I would tell you that I think, the block punt as an example was a great play last week. But if I tell you 100% straight up, I'd like to be getting more out of the return games. I thought they were solid enough last week in special teams, minus the missed field goal and what have you. But hey, to beat a team like that, and I'll repeat this, to beat a top 10 team on the road that's that talented, that big, and that athletic, you can't make mistakes, and they made a few.
All right, Wyatt, before we switch to basketball, let's talk Baylor for a second. 3 touchdown favorites K-State is against Baylor. It's sort of a hard game to think about with what looms next week and with what happened last week, but you do still have to play it, right? What do you think about the Baylor game this weekend?
Well, it is one that you would probably concern yourself with, certainly based on the stuff that we talked about with the Texas loss, that it was just such a gut punch of a loss because you had a chance to win it in the end and didn't get it done. And then you've got the game lurking next week that really everybody is talking about. Baylor has struggled. They're 3-6. They haven't really run the ball very well. They have not been as good defensively as they hope to be. They're beat up a little bit in the receiver corps. I understand that one of their receivers is not going to play in the game because of injury. It kind of just depends on what side of the fence you're on there, because I think you could look at it like with the emotion of last week and next week, that this one is a little bit of a letdown. But one thing that Coach has said to me a couple of different times since, I guess I'll say Wednesday noonish, is that he really has liked how the guys, he saw the hurt, but he also saw the guys come right back on Tuesday and Wednesday and have really good practices. And I think he was proud of that. And I think he feels like they want to, win out here and still have a very successful season. And I think that's what they're looking at.
Wyatt, let's talk basketball a little bit. Probably the marquee matchup in the country on Monday, the opening night of college basketball, as the Wildcats took on USC. I watched and listened to what Jerome Tang had to say after the game, the loss to USC. And, he talked about how he didn't feel like the Wildcats took bad shots. It was just that those shots weren't really going in for Kansas State. It did look like they were a little overmatched in their first, big game. And of course, taking on a top 25 team in Andy Enfield's USC. What were your big takeaways from the Wildcats in their opening night game?
Well, you can't get away from the fact that A, you lost the game, and B, you shot 25% in the first half, and C, you shot 31% for the game. and D, you gave up 50 paint points. Those are all negatives, right? I mean, it's just, let's be honest and cut to the chase on that one. But with that said, for the most part, I think the coaches, and me too, I like the way the guys started the game. I thought they had a lot of energy and passion, and were doing a lot of good things. They really, really did a good job on the glass. And trust me when I tell you, that was the biggest concern, I think, for the K-State coaches, that you've got to get on the glass and get some buckets in transition and those kind of things. And I think they did some of that. The game can be really hard, and you know this, when you're playing hard, but you're not making shots. And I think there were a couple of little segments there where that showed, and maybe they didn't have the necessary pop, I'll say, to fend off an 11-4 run or something like that when you cut it to 40-36. I think at the end of the day, what I would say is I think Coach Tang would play the game again because it was a real measuring stick of kind of where the guys are at right now, how much growth needs to be had. And yet everything he said that didn't go K-State's way, for the most part, is correctable. And I don't necessarily mean making shots, but some of the other things. So, you try to take the lessons of what you didn't do well, and apply that to get better. But yet you can't let that one, drag you down too much because, and he said this right after the game, USC's pretty good. And I think they have as good a backcourt as most. So I guess you have to keep it into perspective.
That's without Bronny James, too, who's just going to add to them, we hope, at some point that he gets
healthy.
And
the Iwachukwu kids also tough, too. I mean, they've got 2 top 50 national, top 30, really, national kids that didn't play. Yeah.
That's a 2 or a 3. That's a 2 or a 3 seed when the tournament rolls around, if not higher. I'm with you. I thought they were really good. So my only question, though, coming out of it is, and Jerome Tang said that he didn't think they took bad shots. So when Tyler Perry's, we know he's going to, we think he's going to lead the way scoring. But when he's not on, like he wasn't in the first half, ultimately, when K-State hits its groove this season, who do you think will be that secondary option?
Well, I think you have several options, and that's, that's probably a good thing. Here's what I would say, and I think this is becoming pretty obvious right out of the gate for this season. K-State was very blessed last year to have 2 All-Americans, 2 pros, 2 first-team All-Big 12 guys kind of thing with Keese and Keontae. This team is going to have to be more of everybody does their part. Does that make sense? Because I think it could be Tyler Perry one night. I think it could be Arthur Kaluma one night. I think it could be David Gasson one night, Cam Carter one night. Those types, and Naquan, if he's back soon. I mean, who knows? Certainly having Quan back would help. I mean, you know that. I mean, he was a almost 11.6 rebound a game guy last year, and he's just gotten better and better. So I think there are options, but I have to be honest and say the explosiveness and the leadership that Marquise brought was pretty special, and I think people are seeing that.
Yeah, I do too, and we'll see him tonight. Bellarmine, I won't ask you for a scouting report there. That seems unfair.
I can give you one. Okay.
Well, what do you know? Have you been able to check him out at all?
Yeah, they played a decent first half at Washington on Monday night, down 35-27, but then got clubbed like 56-30 in the second half. They're not the biggest, most athletic team in the ASUN where they play. North Alabama, those types of teams. They won 15 games a year ago, but 4 starters back. They're going to, Coach said on the radio show last night that they just know how to play good quality offensive basketball, but they'll be out athleted tonight. And at the end of the day, that's probably what you really need to know. They're from the ASUN and from Louisville, Kentucky. And the guy that coaches them has coached with guys like Denny Crum and Rick Pitino. So probably knows a little hoops.
I would imagine he does. Okay, so what do you guys have coming up tonight, Wyatt? And then how does that translate for you into tomorrow? You can stick around and do both. It's an odd, easy, right transition this time of year. I know sometimes that gets a little dicey, but you get them both at home.
Well, that's it. And then we turn right around and play Monday night at home in basketball against South Dakota State. So it's really a pretty very interesting time. Yeah, we'll hit the air tonight at 6, tips at 7:01. The TV is ESPN Big 12 now, ESPN Plus. Ben and Stan will have that. Matt and I will do the radio. And for tomorrow, it's Fort Riley Day here. Pretty much think it's going to be sellout number 14 in a row, which is really great. I really had fun this week with my player interviews. I've had an opportunity to sit down with Cooper Beebe and also our punter, Jack Bloomer. That kind of sounds boring on the outside, but hope everybody will take a listen to it. He's been here 6 years. He's a terrific holder, too. Really good young guy and a big part of the leadership of our football team, to be honest with you. So looking forward to the weekend and Monday night.
All right. Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats. You'll hear all of those games you just mentioned. Basketball tonight, pregame coverage begins at 6. Tomorrow, we begin coverage at 12, and then Monday night as well. Wyatt, we look forward to the calls. Enjoy being home here.
Well, thanks. I'm going to after the trip to Austin and into Vegas. I didn't really even go to bed Monday night into Tuesday because of the trip back, and just went home, showered, and had to catch up with some football. But, hey, still better than working, right?
That's right. You could dig ditches for a living. Right. That's what I always say.
That's right.
All right, Wyatt.
No doubt.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it.
There goes Wyatt Thompson. A lot of good stuff in there. If you missed any of that, you can go back and listen to it at kfhradio.com or for free on the Odyssey app. Speaking of the Odyssey app, primetime NFL games from Westwood One available live for free right here on KFH. And on that app, tune in to KFH Sunday night for NFL action, the Jets on the road in Las Vegas, or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. Let's do a giveaway on the way out here, Tommy, and we'll come back and we can sort of look ahead to some of the hoops tonight. We took care of K-State there with Wyatt Thompson, KU playing tonight as well. But let's do some HTO. We'll give away a free iced tea card, more than 25 flavors. Try the all-new Blueberry Muffin Mix of the Month. You can get those at Wichita's East-West location or in Derby. And we'll give you an HTO Brew House card, which is all the iced and hot coffee and espresso drinks. That's available for you at Wichita's East location and in Derby. First caller can get their hands on that right now on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. We'll be back with more Sports Daily right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you. Jad Chambers producing along the way. Congratulations to Kevin for winning some Brewhouse coffee and some HTO iced tea. Good luck in our next giveaway, which will come in the next hour, which will be some movie tickets, some preview tickets to the new Hunger Games movie, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's a prequel to the very popular movies that came out with Jennifer Lawrence. That'll be next Thursday at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. We'll give those away in the next hour. We'll do our picks in the next hour as well with Paul Savage, who will come in. All kinds of good stuff coming for you on the program here in the next hour. We've got basketball tonight. We heard Wyatt Thompson there mention Bellarmine. We've also got KU tonight taking on Manhattan. So KU Manhattan tonight, Tommy. You know, I don't know how much to make of these games. It's sort of like the opener. It was funny. I was giving, Wyatt Thompson a chance to not say much about Bellarmine, but he had watched them. So kudos to Wyatt Thompson for doing that. As we, there's big football games looming and all these other things. I don't know anything about Manhattan. I know that KU needs to smash again. I don't know what I need to see tonight. I guess that, right? Like smash again. Like these games are so hard to look at and take too much away from. They're like 16-1 games in the tournament. You're just like, what's an acceptable win? I haven't looked at the line on either of those games. I'll pull that up here, Tommy. But anything you're specifically looking for tonight?
Not necessarily. I think for Kansas State, the big question is going to be, how well do they bounce back after their loss against USC? And they've got the opportunity to come back to Manhattan. Of course, they played the first game on a neutral court. So, but that's important, and I watched some of the exhibition game that Kansas State played against Emporia State. What was that, last week? And just how passionate the fans were. And Jerome Tang talked about that after the game, that, they showed up to Bramlage for an exhibition game. And so I can only imagine a regular season game, what that's going to be like. But, you want to see this team gel a little bit better. And I think that incrementally from game to game, we're going to see that from the, as they kind of find their footing, figure out, exactly what the best fit is and the best way for this team to play and get wins. So, that's about the only thing from the K-State game that I'm looking at. With KU, you're right. It's again establishing themselves
36 points. That's what they're favored by.
It's establishing themselves as a dominant force again, right? Like that's the important thing. If you can back up what you did against North Carolina Central earlier this week with another dominant matchup against Manhattan, and then you continue that, throughout some of these cupcake, early season games, that's just going to feed your confidence more and more and more once you get into the back half of non-conference, the holiday tournament, Maui Invitational, all of that stuff. So these early warm-up games are basically just that, warm-up games, but you do have the chance to really establish yourself as a dominant force and prove, again, why you're the number one team in the country.
I've maybe thought of something here. Maybe it would be good from KU to see some other guys get extended minutes and see if you can't, stretch that bench out. Who are going to be those players? I thought in the opener that it was important to see the starters play better than they had played in the exhibition games. And so now that we've seen that, I wonder if there may be any other emphasis to try and get some of those other guys, because that will become important for this team. Like the starters are the starters, and we don't know that fifth star doesn't really matter. But you know what I mean? Like this group is established. There was never really any question about that other than, okay, Arterio Morris isn't there. Who's it going to be? Well, we know it's going to be some combination of a couple of guys. But what about, is this one of those teams where Bill Self really only runs 7 guys? Is it a team where they can run 8 or 9? I mean, I don't think we're going to know that for a while. So it might be good to see a little more out of those other guys if they can get out to another big lead and stretch that out a little bit.
I think 9 is too many. I don't think we're going to see Bill Self run a rotation.
Has Bill Self ever played with 9?
Not regularly. I would imagine we're going to see 7, maybe 8 guys. I mean, there's a reason why Zach Clements redshirted, right? Like if they felt like they needed him right this second, then he wouldn't have redshirted and they would have had him on the active roster. I mean, you're going to see the 5 starters that we've seen so far. I think that number 2 spot, that guard spot, is still in flux. If it's going to be Elmarco Jackson or if it's going to be Nick Timberlake. I think eventually maybe Johnny Furphy may find his way into that spot, but you're looking at a bench of, one of those guys and then Parker Brown and maybe Jamari McDowell getting some minutes. But really, other than that, I mean, like you're looking at 7, maybe 8 guys who will be in the regular rotation. Of course, you don't count, the guys that come in and clean up in garbage minutes at the end of the game. But I really think that rotation, especially early on, because this is one thing that Bill Self is notorious for. When you get late in the season, when you get into the Big 12 hunt, one of the big reasons why KU has won all those Big 12 titles is because Bill Self doesn't usually put the most talented players on the court. He puts the players that he trusts the most on the court in those crunch time games. That's why his rotation is typically fairly small. I think we'll see that again this season.
Yeah, I do too. I'm trying to remember a year where they did stretch it out, and there have been some, but those haven't been the most successful years that I can remember, right? When we think to the national championship teams and those were pretty short benches, and they're, assuming
he rides
Kevin
his horses.
McCullough,
He's got his horses and he rides them, that's what he does.
And as far as we know, all those horses are healthy and ready to roll, right? We know that DeJuan Harris doesn't ever need to come off the floor, never has, probably never will. Kevin McCullough appears to be as healthy as he has been in a long time. He got nicked up that final exhibition game, but he's fine. It's the bigs that you wonder about stamina. You'll always do. But KJ Adams is a stallion, man. He's not going to, and we don't know Dickinson yet, but they have the ability to rotate some guys in there. So I think they'll be fine too, to do that as long as everybody stays healthy. But again, if everybody stays healthy, if they don't, somebody's going to have to step up, even if it is a short rotation. So again, seeing some of these secondary players show something may be the things to look for early in the season when they should be just pounding everybody, at least in these type of games where it's like, okay, if something happens or if they need depth or if somebody gets in foul trouble or whatever, who is going to be that next group? We know Timberlake is a part of the first group, but Furphy was that guy sort of in the last one. And, who else might it be? Well, maybe we'll see that tonight out of KU. I'm with you on K-State. Just bounce back and get a nice win tonight, and everything will be all right. 869-1240. Paul Savage joins us as we go into our next hour. We're going to make some picks. Tommy, coming off of a big week last week, he's ready to talk about it now and brag about it, I hope, and just really set himself up for a big old jinx this week. But we'll get into all of that as we make some picks. We'll talk a little high school football as well as Sports Daily rolls into hour number 2 here on a Friday.
Laugh Out Loud Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The fall holiday is here, and we've been busy perfecting our new home-style turkey and stuffing meal. That's right. All the warm, comforting nostalgia of turkey and stuffing. None of the dishes to clean up afterwards. And the best part is, if your kid wants pancakes instead, we have those too. Celebrate with the whole family with Kids Eat Free every day from 4 to 10 p.m. for a limited time. Only at IHOP. Let's put a smile on your plate. Download the app and earn free food with every order. Account sign up required for a limited time only. 1 free kids entree. Each full priced adult entree purchase. Dining only restrictions apply.
Thinking about a bathroom remodel? You should consider the Onyx Collection from Superior Plumbing. Whether it's a standard or a custom shower design, the team at Superior Plumbing can assist you in creating the perfect new bathroom. Oh, and the Onyx Collection is guaranteed forever and made right here in Kansas. Visit the Superior Plumbing showroom at 6837 East Harry today.
Has Christmas lost its magic this year? Amid too many errands to run, too many cookies to bake, too many presents to wrap, and too few hours to get it all done? Let Mike Seltzer Jewelers help you rediscover that wonderful bubble of excitement you felt as a child before the pressures of the season destroyed the enchantment. From now through December 24th, almost every piece of stunning jewelry at Mike Seltzer Jewelers is 50% off. Doesn't that make you feel better already? With 50
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Hey, sports bettors, ready for some picks destined to fail? It's time to hear what the Sports Daily staff thinks of the weekend games.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Hour number 2. There's Paul Savage joining us. Ooh, in his Baylor hat today. Interesting.
Yeah,
maybe an allusion to the pick he's about to have to make. We'll see if he puts his money where his mouth is there.
Yeah.
As K-State gets ready to take on the Bears as a three touchdown favorite. All right, Jad keeps tally of things for us. Tommy won the week. Last week he had one of those special weeks. 9-1. Paul 5-5. I'm 6-4. I'm now a game behind Paul. Even with the great week, Tommy, you sit 7 games behind Paul.
Oh, gosh.
So things
Wow,
tightening up just a little bit here. Paul, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, you're on the way. I can see it.
You can feel it. You can feel it as you're there.
Not so much, really. No, I'm just
lollygagging, paying so much attention to your East High Blue Aces in their playoff game.
Who are you calling a lollygagger? I want to know, who are you calling a lollygagger?
You're losing that commanding lead you had. You're focused too much on the playoffs here with your Aces.
I guess.
Big game tonight against Washburn Rural. See if East can get it done and stay hot. Congratulations, by the way.
Do you need a score?
I'll
text you one if you need one right after the game.
Yeah, I will. Sometimes, look, it's funny. The City League scores sometimes are hardest to find on a Friday night.
No,
a little inside baseball there.
Oh.
It is. It's the way it is. All right, let's make some picks. Jad, hit the music.
Hey, do I get to actually talk about my 9-1? Or are you just going to breeze right by
right.
it?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's right. I gave you the opportunity. I gave you one Monday, and you didn't take it.
Because there was still a game remaining on Monday Night Football. I didn't want to jinx it. I won
go
that
ahead.
game too.
Let's talk about it. Let's get that jinx. Let's get that jinx out of the way right now.
Yeah, what was your secret?
My secret was just my vast knowledge of football.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
Keep going.
Because I went 0-10. Remember, I went 0-6 ago. So, I mean, but here's the thing. I was 15 games behind Paul this time last week. Now I'm only 7 games behind Paul.
Wow.
So I'm making up ground. I'm right there. I'm getting back into the race because everybody thought it was over. Everybody counted me out. I remember Geno Smith after a Seahawks game last year said something to the effect of like, everybody wrote me off and I didn't write them back. And that's kind of how I feel right now. I'm getting right back into it. And I'm optimistic that I'm going to follow up last week with another great week.
Good. Anything else to get this jinx going here? Anything else you need to say?
That's all.
Okay.
I appreciate the platform to be able to at least acknowledge my great week last week.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
A reminder, still 7 games back of the lead. Just also
I'm back in it, though. I'm back in it.
To reset. All right, you get to go first then, Hot Shot. Michigan, Penn State. Penn State plus 5.5 here. What do you think? Look, this is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one.
Yeah, so, of course, so much drama with Michigan right now. I read a report that, and this was like an hour ago, that Jim Harbaugh's attorney released a statement that said that he will be on that team plane one way or another to Happy Valley. He's going to the game. I don't know if he's coaching in the game. It sounds like the Big Ten may have their punishment coming out sometime today is what it sounds like. But there's going to be, I don't know, lawyers in front of judges trying to get a restraining order and all this stuff to make sure that Jim Harbaugh is on the sideline. The best way for Michigan to have people temporarily forget about the scandal that's going on there is if they go to Happy Valley and they dominate. I don't see a letdown coming with Michigan on Saturday. I'm going to take the Wolverines and I'll lay the 5.5.
Are they galvanized, Paul? Actually, it's me first because you lost the week last week. The question becomes, are they galvanized by this or are they distracted by it? Here's what I'm going to say. They haven't played anybody. So I'm going to take home points for a really good Penn State team. I'll keep it that simple. You know, I don't want to look there. I don't know that there's been a bigger story that I care less about than this one because I care far more about Michigan and how they play football. and they haven't played anybody yet. And they're going to get their first chance to prove it this week. In Penn State, a good team's getting points like that at home. I'll take the 5.5, and I'll take the Nittany Lions. Paul, what do you think?
Here's the thing, guys. Distractions affect football teams. It's just that simple. I know it. I know that this is a big deal. Listen, we're hearing about this in Wichita, Kansas. What do you think the scuttlebutt is, the rumors flying, everything going on? Everybody, these kids go to class and people are asking what's going on with Jim Harbaugh, and all the scandals and all this. So what about sanctions and all? Listen, this is a distraction. It's a big distraction. Distractions and good football teams do not go together. I'm taking Penn State. And listen, this team is distracted. Oh, by the way, Tommy, congratulations on your new gig with Odyssey. I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate
I'm
that.
very happy for you. It's good. It's good news.
Thank you.
But anyway, with that being said, I'm taking Penn State, Jacob. Penn State. This is almost a no-brainer.
Oh, I don't know about that. I thought I'd be on an island there, quite frankly.
No.
All right, Tennessee, Missouri. I go first here. Mizzou getting 1.5 at home against Tennessee. Mizzou didn't get it done, but they played well against Georgia. I think Mizzou can bounce back here. I still think they're being a little bit underrated. That cashed last week. That underrated. I think making them a home dog again is just a little bit. I don't know if it's a slap in the face, but it's not respect. And I'll take Mizzou, and I'll take the 1.5 at home. Paul?
Well, I'll tell you what. This is another no-brainer for me. This is a pickup on Jacob. I'm going to take Tennessee. This isn't even close to me. I've said all along that I think Missouri is an overrated football team. I've watched them like 3 times this year. This is for an SEC team. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it's a physical football team, but it's not SEC physical. That's kind of my take. I could be wrong. I'm going to take Tennessee. This is almost another no-brainer for me. Tennessee, and I'll give the 1.5.
Tommy?
One of the islands that I got last week was I was the only one out of the 3 of us that thought Missouri would cover against Georgia last week, and they did. They didn't win the game, but they certainly covered, and they looked like they belong in the SEC. Now, that being said, I'm not a Missouri fan. I've made that very clear, but I'm with you, Jacob. I think that they bounce back. Not only do I think they cover the 1.5, I think they outright win the game at home against Tennessee. I'm going to take the Tigers, and I'll take those points.
It's not a bad island, fellas.
Get your cheerleader pom-poms out, you Mizzou homer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that doesn't feel good. I know that doesn't feel good to make that pick, but they are being disrespected this year. All right, Utah and Washington. This one is you, Paul, first here.
Yeah.
Pac-12 game. I love this one. Future Big 12, future Big 10, but current Pac-12. What do you think?
Boy, this is a tough one for me. I'm not sure. Last week I took Utah because I thought Utah was better than they were, and they did not look as good as I thought they should. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but anyway, I was disappointed in Utah. Bad experience. The question is, do I go with Utah again? Because I think that's a lot of points. That's more than a touchdown. I like that for a spread. You know something? I'm going to try Utah one more time. Fellas, I am not convinced I'm right. I do not. In fact, I might probably be wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and take Utah. Gut says Utah, but heart says Washington. I'll take Utah.
All right. That makes you first, or you next here, Tommy.
Utah, I have really liked throughout the course of this season. That being said, though, and they played outstanding against Arizona State. I mean, they won by 50-some points a week ago at home. However, they were kind of ran out of the building against Oregon a couple of weeks ago.
Bad.
And Washington is a better team than Oregon is. I really, really love Michael Penix Jr. I love what's going on there with Washington. I'm going to take the Huskies, and I'll lay those points.
All right. Well, I am too. I'm going to take Washington here. I think they're really good, and I think they have a very good understanding of what's at stake for them. They have an opportunity to get back to the CFP, a place they've been before, and they have one of the best players in the country. Can they win by 8.5? That's a large number, but I'll take it. I'll take the Huskies, and I'll lay the points there. Texas Tech at KU. KU laying 3.5. Tommy, you're up first.
Yeah, so this is actually, I think, a pretty tough game to pick. Considering what's happening with the Jayhawks, the fact that they are guaranteed a winning season, they still have a path albeit a small one, but a path to a Big 12 championship. They've got to win out. They have to win every single game, moving forward, and they need some help from either Texas or Oklahoma State, which seems unlikely, but at least it's on the table for them. They're back at home. It looks like it's going to be a sellout crowd. However, I'm actually going to take Texas Tech, and I'll take the 3.5. I think Kansas wins the game, but I think it's going to come down to a field goal. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm taking a Jayhawks win, but I'll take a Texas Tech cover.
It's interesting. I've had a weird vibe on this game since we first started talking about it on Monday, but I cannot figure out why, and I cannot figure out why Vegas still likes Texas Tech as much as it does every week, not just this week. And because I don't think it's there. I think Tech, again, I've said it, I think Tech is the most disappointing team in the Big 12 this year. I don't think KU is going to overlook Texas Tech because of what you said. They still have an opportunity to play for a Big 12 championship. And I know K-State looms next week. They're at home. I thought that was as good as Jason Bean has looked. I think it's becoming more clear that it's Jason Bean's show. And I'm going to take KU and I'll lay the 3.5. Paul, a tiebreaker opportunity for you.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is same sentiments, just practically with you, Jacob. I'm going to take KU partly because it's going to be a sellout, partly because this is at home. It's a team that I think is getting better and better. They're getting stronger and stronger. Turning a football team is a long, long process. It's like turning a battleship around. And the coaching staff at KU is doing a great job. I'm going to go ahead and take KU. I'm with you on Texas Tech. Who are they? Which Texas?
Can I just say?
Yeah, please go ahead, Tommy.
I just want to say really quickly, earlier this week, we had a comment on our YouTube stream, somebody calling me a KU homer. And I'm the only one out of the three of us that picked Texas Tech to cover this game. So, people can call me whatever they want.
You guys are getting to it.
Taking Texas Tech.
Keep it up. You guys are getting to him. You made him pick Mizzou and against KU. You're getting to him out there. All right. K-State, they've got Baylor at home. 21 points,
my God.
Paul.
Oh, geez.
I'm going to go out of order and give you the first word on this as you sit there in your Baylor hat. 21 points. You can't go against your Bears in 21 points, can you?
I think I could, but I won't. But I tell you what, Tommy, why don't you just call me a name, right? Pick a name and call me that, because that's the slap in the face that I'm getting right here. Tommy, go ahead. Whatever name you want to call me, lay it on me, big boy.
Hey, I'm a respectful person. I'm not in the business of name calling.
All right, good. I thought
you big sissy. Yeah, you big sissy. I'll say it.
That's it right there.
You better take your Baylor Bears. You better take your Baylor Bears.
I'm taking Baylor. I'm ashamed of them. I'm not ashamed of them, but I mean, they're not good. I'll take Baylor. 21 points, fellas, though, in all reality, that's a lot of points. Baylor's not that bad, are they? Or are they? I'm taking Baylor.
That's why we use those numbers. That's a lot of points. By the way, does Sissy get me canceled? Are we still okay with Sissy?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what.
It's one of my favorites.
It fits.
It's one of my favorites.
It's not getting you canceled. Come on now.
It's an old football thing. Right. I'm trying to appeal to Paul Savage, the old Baylor Bear football player.
That's it.
The old mean coach that gets the best out of his players. We had to have Paul pick Baylor there.
Yes.
All right. 21 points is wild to me. I don't know what to make of that. But here's what I'll say. When K-State has been clearly the better team, they have throttled people. And that defense has flexed on people. And we know the offense is really, really good. I think this is a chance for them to get back to that, which would be nice to do before they play KU. Just remind the world that they are capable of an absolutely dominating win. They've had lots of them this year, and they've responded to losses well. I'll take K-State. Tommy?
They're mad. They are a mad team after last week and what happened against Texas. They had a prime opportunity, and it didn't work out for them. I can only imagine what practice has been like this week. Baylor, they've been up and down, more down, though, than up. I think the Kansas State not only covers this number, I think they cover it relatively early, like maybe in the third quarter. They cover this 21. I think Kansas State wins by 28. 30, 31, something like that. I'm going to take the Wildcats and I'll lay the points.
I never like numbers that big. We'll have another one of those in the NFL just for fun. Let's go to the NFL now. We get back in order here, which means I think this is actually supposed to be the spot where you pick first, Paul. So Browns and Ravens. The Ravens had historically struggled against the Browns, and then they smoked them earlier this year. They're laying 6.5. They're football's hottest team. You think they can, get that kind of a win here against Cleveland?
Yeah, going back earlier in the season, you get that feeling. Yeah, and I think the Browns are on an upward swing. I'm not saying the trajectory is to the moon, but I'm saying they seem to be on a gradual upswing. I'm going to go ahead and take the Browns.
Okay. This will be, I'll bet you, one of the more lopsided public money to the Ravens bets of the weekend, which always makes you nervous. Tommy, what do you have on this one?
Yeah, I've been really high on the Ravens over the last, 3 or 4 weeks. They look like the best team in football. That being said, the Browns have played extremely well defensively. I just have concerns about the way that their offense works. And, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the way that they score the football. I'll take Baltimore. I don't feel great about it, but it is within that touchdown number. I don't know. I'm going to take Baltimore. I'll lay the 6.5.
I think I'll take Baltimore too. Look, I know it was 28-3 in that earlier meeting, and everyone will quickly tell you that Deshaun Watson was out. Guys, Deshaun Watson, he's not that good. Like, let's just be real about it. Like, what's the difference between Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson or whoever else? He just doesn't look good right now. So I don't know how much of a boost that is for Cleveland in the first place. Could this be the game where he steps up? Yes. Could this be the game where, that defense gives Lamar Jackson the sort of historic trouble he's had this year? Could be, but I'm going to take the Ravens until they prove us otherwise. Just simply as being the NFL's hottest team, I think they can win at home by a touchdown. All right, I think I'm up first here. Texans, Bengals. This is probably, oddly, the game of the week. Maybe in the NFL, there's another one that we'll pick that probably has a spot in that conversation as well. But I know a lot of people are interested in this one because of Stroud. Joe Burrow's playing better. It's got one of the bigger numbers of the week at 47 points. It feels like a little bit of an opportunity for Cincinnati here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of games where you feel like they have an opportunity, but to win by a touchdown against Houston at home, I'm all over that. I'm all over the Bengals this week. They struggle when they start a season and then they get hot. This is what they do. I'll take the Bengals and I'll lay the 6.5. Paul?
I'm with you. This is really, for me, and on the pro side, this is probably one of the easier games to pick. Yeah, Bengals are all over this home game. It's all lined up. Fate is there. It's going to be the Bengals, and they'll cover. I think they'll cover easily. I'm going to take the Bengals as well.
Tommy, I know you're a C.J. Stroud guy.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud looked absolutely phenomenal a week ago. He looks like the real deal. That's not why I'm going to be taking the Texans, though. Remember, T. Higgins is more than likely out for the Bengals.
Yep.
Jamar Chase isn't guaranteed to play either, and if he does play, he may be limited. Joe Burrow more than likely is going to be down one, if not two, of his top weapons that he's got on the team. And the Texans are on the upswing. If I'm going to get 6.5 points in an island for Houston, I'm going to take that. Give me the Texans, and I'll take the 6.5.
If you are going to bet this game, wait until the inactives come out on Sunday.
Yeah.
This is a classic game of do not bet it early. You got to see if Jamar Chase is going to play. I'm assuming that he will as we make the picks here today. He's a gamer. I think he'll go. 49ers, Jags +3. 49ers, look, they probably needed to get to a bye week, right? Tommy, you're up first on this one. The Jaguars at home getting points. That's a 6-2 team at home getting points. What do you think?
Yeah, the 49ers are due. They have not looked good the last few weeks, and the Jags have an opportunity to solidify themselves as one of the top teams in the AFC. It's kind of that battle of, who's going to win out, whether it's going to be the team that wants to establish themselves versus the team that is in dire need of a bounce back. I don't really feel good about this one either way, but I'll take the 49ers. I'll lay the 3 points.
The Jaguars have not lost since September. They are on a hot streak. They've won 5 in a row. They're also coming off of a bye week, getting home points here. But I'm with you. I'm going to take the 49ers. Like, if the 49ers don't win this game by 3 points or more, then it's a real problem. And I don't know that we can consider them where we had them a few weeks ago. I'm still willing to believe in what they did earlier in the year. I think they've got a chance to get healthy. I think Deebo Samuel is finally back for them. I'm going to take the Niners. Paul, a chance for Jaguars Island. You taking it?
Yeah, I did not expect this. Here's a chance for an Island, and I'll tell you what, I was real hot on the 49ers earlier in the year. Now they've let me down a couple times in a row. I haven't got a win with them for a while, and for that reason, you guys give me an Island. Listen, the Jags are capable of winning this game. They're getting 3 points, but the Jags are capable of winning this game without the points, and so. This is a good Island, a home game for the Jags. 49ers travel. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Jaguars. I'm just got to do it because it's an Island, and the Jags could win this game at home.
It's home points. Yeah, it's home points. Not a bad Island at all. All right, Lions, Chargers. The Chargers are getting, speaking of home points, the Chargers are getting 3 at home.
Right.
Guys, the Chargers offense is not playing well. Justin Herbert is not playing well to his own standard. They've got a ton of injuries on offense, but they're getting 3 points at home. It's a defense that's playing better. Paul, you're up first on this one. Your Lions, on the road, laying 3. I think they're coming off of a bye too. I'm pretty sure. What do you think here?
Well, and that's a good thing because both these teams are nicked up a little bit. I like the Lions in this. I think the Lions are on the right direction. Dan Campbell is kind of like my hero right now in the NFL. I like him as much as any coach in all of the NFL. I'm going to go ahead and take the Lions just based upon my experience with them in Hard Knocks.
Tommy, the Lions get David Montgomery back this week, which will be a boon for them. Chargers are one of the better run defenses in football, though. What do you have in this one?
Yeah, I feel like the buzz around Detroit has quieted down over the last few weeks, but it seems like they've kind of gotten the pieces back. Seems like with David Montgomery returning, if they can continue to utilize Jahmyr Gibbs in the right way, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams is back. Jared Goff kind of has, for the most part, his full contingent in Detroit ready to go. I have no confidence in the Chargers and anything that they do. I'll take Detroit. I'll join Paul. I'll lay those 3 points.
Only because this is an Island will I take the Chargers here, but I will. Only because it's an Island. I think that Detroit should be on the way back here. They are healthy, but they do want to run the ball first and foremost, and the Chargers do have a really good run defense. And can they make Jared Goff make a couple of mistakes? He's prone to it, and their pass rushes come on. I think they can win kind of an ugly game here against Detroit. I think this game gets ugly. It's 48.5. I'm all over that under, but we'll see what happens here in this one, but I'll take the Chargers strictly to get the Island here. Home points are never a bad thing. All right, Giants, Cowboys. I'm up first here. I only put this one on here because I think it's the biggest spread of the year in the NFL. 17 points. Tommy DeVito's playing. It seems like it is absolutely ridiculous to lay 17 points in the NFL. I would never bet this game, but we're picking it. I'll lay the points, I guess. Like the thought of Micah Parsons feasting on Tommy DeVito here. Like this is 17 points. Are we from the Giants were a playoff team a year ago. Playoffs? I'll take the Cowboys and lay the 17. Paul?
Well, Danny DeVito's brother is starting this game, and he's only 5'7". So when you look, he's going to have a hard time looking over the offensive line, finding receivers at 5'7". So, I think the Cowboys will be all, and I'm kidding. Of course he's not. I think the kid is 6'2" or something like that. But anyway, but anyway, you look at this game and you think 17 points until you look at what's going on with the Giants. That is a disaster with injuries. It is a disaster, maybe even with the coaching staff. There's a lot of problems. Listen, guys, 17 points. I hate to say this in the NFL. 17 points could be had right now by halftime. That might be covered by halftime. I don't know, but I can't believe I'm laying 17 points on an NFL game. But I'm going to join you just so I can someday tell my grandkids, hey, I laid 17 points on a game and won. How about that? And that'll be a great story.
We would be talking about it for generations.
Generations.
Surely you're not going to lay 17 points in a clean sweep here.
Okay, so Tommy DeVito, in the first game that he played, when in relief of Daniel Jones against the Jets, he went 2 of 7 with -1 yard passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, after that, when he played the Raiders, now they lost and they got blown out by the Raiders. There was a lot going on with Vegas at that time, but he was 15 of 20 for 175 yards, did throw for a touchdown. He had 2 interceptions, though. He's getting better, I suppose, as the quarterback of this team. Don't forget, the Giants still have Saquon Barkley, right? Isn't he still on the team? You would imagine that they will do everything that they can to get the ball as much as they can to Saquon Barkley, only because it's an island. And I got to get back into this. I'm going to reluctantly take the Giants, convince myself they can cover. I guess one other thing that I'll say too, remember the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals earlier this season, and the Cardinals are not a good football team. And so it has happened before. I think the Cowboys win, obviously, but I think the Giants have a chance to cover that 17 number. I'll take the island.
The Cowboys are so capable of, I call them turd games, that's what makes you nervous about it, because no Darren Waller, nothing is going right for the Giants. It's more about, can the Cowboys avoid that turd game that they've been privy to over the past couple of years. But yeah, I think you got to take 17 points on an island.
Yeah, Cowboys could shut them out. I mean, we could see it. We could see
totally. Cowboys could beat them 40-0.
That's right. It could be a zero score on one end. Yes.
Or the Cowboys could win by a field goal late in the game. I mean,
because that's what they do.
Sure,
I don't know. Whatever. Cowboys, if they can, I'll say this about the Cowboys, off topic here. If they avoid one of those dud games, they've had 2 of them this year, the Cardinals game and the 49ers game. If they can avoid one of those the rest of the way, I think it's a totally different dynamic going into the postseason. Like, if we know Dallas is, not going to totally lay an egg, they can beat anybody in football. They're an interesting team. We'll see. That game tomorrow, biggest spread, I believe, that we've seen this year. All right, let's take a break. On the way out, we'll give away some Hunger Games tickets. The Songbirds, what is it? The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Thursday night, November 16th at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. That's a sneak peek, by the way, and you can go check it out on us here. A pair of tickets. We'll come back. We'll talk a little high school football. 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. Get on there. Win those tickets. First caller right now. All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. Congratulations to Mark for winning some of those Hunger Games tickets. Great book. I'm halfway through. I'm excited about the movie, if it's as good as the old movies were, and the old books. It's a good one. So congratulations, Mark. We'll have tickets to give away next week as well for that. All right, fellas, let's look at the high school scoreboard here at what we have coming tonight. So I'm just going to run through real quick the teams we're still watching from the area here. We have Wichita East. We have Derby in 6A. In 5A, we've got Mays South, Capon, Mays, and Goddard Eisenhower. In 4A, we've got Wellington, McPherson, and Andover Central alive. In 3A, we've got Cheney, Collegiate, and Andale alive. I'm not sure if Clay Center's our viewing area. Clay Center's in there too, off the top of my head. We've got southeast of Saline, Hoisington, Norton, and Ellsworth alive in 2A, Conway Springs, Marion, Medicine Lodge in 1A. And then in 8-man, quite a few teams still going as they go divisions, and 6-man, we won't go down that far. But, Paul, we start in 6A. Your East High Aces, you've been with that team. You're helping coach them this year. Washburn Rural, it's been a remarkable run. Just a really impressive win last week, and this is a big, big test against Rural, one of the favorites this year. How are things looking for you guys tonight?
Well, let's not forget, Jacob, if you remember correctly, the first game of the season, Wichita East traveled up to Topeka to play Washburn Rural up there and makes a return trip. That was a game that was very interesting. A lot of turnovers for East. That set up a loss. The score was 27-20. It was a 1-point game. Wichita East, interestingly enough, if you remember the details, scored 4 touchdowns on offense. Washburn Rural scored 3. But East gave up a pick for a touchdown, couldn't kick a few extra points. There you go, 1-point loss. I wouldn't want to play us if I was them again. We're better. We've gotten better. We've gotten more physical on both the offense and defensive line. And I'll be real truthful. If I'm Washburn Rural and I'm sitting there looking at film, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it as a broadcaster, not as a coach. And I'll put it this way. If I'm the coaches at Washburn Rural, I wouldn't want to play Wichita East watching film after the game with Northwest, because East was pretty physical, Jacob. I don't know if you saw any of the film.
Yeah, no, we did.
Pretty physical, but a lot
and
more.
They got that swag, Paul.
We got
that swag.
We got swag.
Yeah, Deontay Mitchell Deontay Mitchell, Tommy's as fun a player as we've had in a long time
No
at
kidding.
quarterback.
No kidding.
And they're swaggy,
Yeah.
man. And it's fun. It translates. It's very tangible this year for East.
Yeah, and what I love about it is the fact that really at the beginning of the season, if you had to pick a City League team that you would suggest would be in this position in 6A at this point in the season, it wouldn't probably be Wichita East. Not that they weren't talented.
No, it would have been
everybody.
Northwest, sure.
Everybody looks at Northwest, right? Like that's just the way.
Right. That's right.
Or Bishop Carroll or what? Like everybody looks at like these other teams in the City League. But just the way that Wichita East has played throughout the course of the season, their confidence, Paul, has grown week after week after week. With each win and each milestone victory, man, that's fueled this program into being at this point right now.
Right. And a lot of that credit, by the way, since we're talking about Wichita East, goes to the head coach, N.A. Ekpen. He's done a great job, guys. This is my first year back. Remember, I was at East for 8 years, back when the Brown brothers were there, of all things, and was there for 8 years and then left for a while. I'm back with Coach E, and he's done a great job.
Coach E's your guy, though, Paul.
You've
my
been
guy. Saying that for years.
Yeah, that's right. He's my guy. Coached with him, got to know him in indoor professional football, coached with him a couple of years, then went to East with him this year, and he's doing a great job. But you're right, Tommy. This is a team with swag, or Jacob, I think you said that, swag. But what it is how many times through the course of a football season do I say the team that is more physical on up front usually wins football games? And Wichita East not only runs well, but now we become much, much more physical up front. It was a process. You got to understand it wasn't at first, and it's a learning process for kids of this age. But I wouldn't want to play us. I'll be real truthful. If I was someone else, I don't want to play us.
Yeah, and that physicality is something that has let many of the dynasties that exist in the state exist for a long time.
Bingo,
East has found it. That's what's made Northwest their turnaround. Like they're dominant on the lines. I know they've had star players, but that's been awesome to see. Derby gets another shot at Manhattan. Manhattan has shattered dreams of our teams now for 2 years. Derby's going to take a swing at them. Good luck to Derby. The area needs a little revenge against Manhattan. So 2 tough road games at 6A. In 5A, again, Capon and Mays South is going to be fascinating. Capon's Omari Elias, the running back, real quick, guys. He had 49 carries last week. 49 carries in that game. And he was good. And he's always good. And he is their horse, and they are going to ride him to wherever they go this postseason.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup, and a tip of the cap to Weston Schartz and what he's done at Capon after all those years at Wichita West, going over to Capon and really rebuilding that program. They were down bad for a while, and when you compare the Holy War and you compare Capon and Carroll, Carroll has dominated so many years. Capon able to finally knock him down, for the first time in forever this season. It's been a special year for Capon. And then, by the way, the fact that they're going to be moving down to 4A, they might be a force to be reckoned with in 4A in future seasons, knowing where they've gotten in 5A this year.
Yeah, it's they're and by the way, on the other 5A matchup, Paul Mays, the 11 seed. The 11 seed has now pulled 2 upset wins to get a matchup with Goddard Eisenhower.
Yeah, pull up their schedule and you look at some of the scores and you think, how'd they lose that game? And then they go to the 3rd round. I mean, that's amazing. And I think I looked the other day, at least the first 3 divisions in the Kansas State playoff system, I think they have more losses than anybody else left at this point. I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
I think that's
highest
correct.
seed.
Yeah, So I'm telling you right now, it's really amazing. They've done a great job. But, you play at money time. Let's face it, guys. You play when the money's on the line, and that's what Mays is doing. Hats off to them. That's an interesting story, isn't it? Very interesting.
Good luck to all of our teams alive. One more quick mention. Andale. Collegiate's going to get another shot at Andale. But, if the favorites win tonight, we're going to get an Andale Cheney rematch in the postseason, and that's going to be awesome. But
Collegiate's
it's going to be Collegiate's awesome. Got some dudes. Collegiate's not, they've had a really nice year, and they're really good. And who knows tonight? But no matter what it is, 3A has been a blast, and we'll continue to do that. You can catch all of the action tonight on the Catch It Kansas show. So you can go to catchkansas.com right now. Check out all those matchups. We'll have you covered on 12 News tonight with the games. And then, of course, over on the CW, the Catch Kansas show, full half hour, all kinds of stuff, live reports. We've got reporters on scene. Going to be a lot of fun. But check it out. We are into the third round. Nitty gritty. We're a couple weeks away. We're going to be crowning champions, fellas, on a state championship Saturday after Thanksgiving.
That's right.
And it will have gone by in the blink of an eye. You can catch primetime NFL games from Westwood One, available live for free right here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. Tune in to KFH Sunday night for NFL action. The Jets on the road in Las Vegas. You can simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. We'll come back. We'll continue to preview this big weekend in sports, which starts tonight with some college hoops. That's next on Sports Daily.
Page.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage, Tommy Castor alongside you here. The IHOP hotline is open the rest of the way. This Veterans Day, IHOP will be welcoming veterans and active duty military with free red, white, and blueberry pancakes to thank them for their service on November 11th. All right, fellas, let's go back and revisit. We spent just a couple of minutes on this right off the top. Thank you to all our veterans, by the way, out there, since you won't hear from us tomorrow. My dad, my grandpa, both were veterans. I appreciate their service and all that service out there. Hopefully you get a chance to, feel that love and respect this weekend. Let's talk Wichita State a little bit, fellas. We talked, Paul, off the top of the show. It was a really strange game because in a lot of traditional metrics, Wichita State didn't play well, right? They were out-rebounded. They turned the ball over way too much. They didn't shoot free throws well. They didn't shoot three-pointers well. And they won. And they won by 10. And I think that, we're talking about this is like, look, when you win those kinds of games, I absolutely think there's value for the coaching staff to sit there and show guys that and be like, look, think about how good you can be if we don't have 20 turnovers and if we don't let them out-rebound us. And, there is some fear in there because they did shoot, 0 for 21 from three. But what have you thought about the early look of the Shockers here, Paul, with Paul Mills in charge?
Well, the main thing is it's a hard situation to get a grasp of. There's so many new players. I mean, there's a lot of players that we've got to figure out. We've got to understand who they are, what they do well, what they don't do so well. And there's so many new players that I'll be real truthful. I don't know yet. I haven't seen enough to get the feel
Right.
for what I need, but that'll come. That'll come. I guess what I'm saying is that we have to have enough confidence in this coaching staff and Coach Mills in particular. We got to have confidence that the guys he's recruited will be able to do what we need to see done. And granted, maybe in the early games, maybe we have questions, but I think it's way too early. These guys there's so many new guys, so many of these guys, we don't know what they do. We don't know what they're capable of. And I'm of the persuasion that Paul Mills is going to need time to get what he wants done on the court through to these guys. And being a coach, I understand sometimes, guys, that takes time. Sometimes it just takes it takes some games, it takes some practice. There's a lot of things, but I think there's an upside. I'm not going to say I'm guaranteeing the fact that there's upside.
There's for sure an upside.
But
there's
there
for
is
sure
an
an upside.
I think there is.
It's so crazy, Tommy. And we talked about this after the first game too. Like Beverly's the only new guy doing anything, right? Colby Rogers is new to us because we didn't get to see him, but he's been in the program. Like the only player
but he's new to us.
But so Bijan Cortez and some of the other players that were brought in, DeGray, that were brought in by Mills, we may not see them. So it's essentially the guys that have been here. And Ballard didn't play a ton, but again, in the program last year. And that's what's been really interesting to watch in all of this is we expected coming into this year all these players we'd never seen or heard of before, and they're not there. It's the guys the returners that did come back happen to be the guys. Now that's by somewhat coincidence, I think, but it is what it is. And it is nice to see those guys really contributing and playing pretty well. Poto has been good. They've done
good.
what they've needed to do out of the gates. Xavier Bell and Isaac Abide was a spark plug again last night. So look, it's these are the players. I don't think we learn our lesson from last year with Colby Rogers. Don't anticipate any other players coming in or getting, waivers granted or anything else. If that happens, that's great. But don't expect it. This is the team, and this team has showed some early season resilience.
Yeah, I remember when Kenny Poto entered the transfer portal and ultimately came back. But I remember when he entered the transfer portal, the question was, who's going to start on this team? Like, who do they even have? Like, what does the roster even look like? And then Kenny Poto comes back, and then you have some other guys that are returners that are now getting extended minutes. I think that the key is for guys like Xavier Bell and Quincy Ballard, who didn't get a ton of run a year ago, to continue to grow. And, Paul Mills looks like he trusts them to have extended minutes and Xavier Bell to run the point. That's really important. I mentioned it when we talked about it at the top of the show about how the pace in which this team plays in is great, and it's fast paced. The tempo is fun. The intensity level is up there. That's what Shocker fans want. I'm all on board with that. But again, the concern is playing out of control. And so I think it's going to take a little bit of time. You mentioned Harlan Beverly at the top of the show is a wild man, right? And that's very true. He's got a ton of energy. He's got a great motor, but he turned the ball over way too much last night, right?
Two games in a row now, he's turned it over too much.
I think you've got to have a good balance between playing with tempo and playing in control, right? And taking care of the basketball and being careful. We watched too much Shocker basketball a year ago of a team that didn't have any kind of energy.
Right.
And they would just disappear for long stretches at a time.
Right.
I don't envision that being the case with this particular team under this particular coach, but you've got to learn to play with that tempo. You've got to learn to play under control while you do it.
Yeah. Tempo and pace as much as energy. I think the team last year had energy. It was just a totally different tempo at which they played. That game last night was fast tempo.
Yep.
It was not an offensive, masterclass, but it was high tempo all the way through, and both teams were bringing it. It was a fun game.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. The question I have is, where do you think this team will be, let's say halfway through the season? Where do you think this team is going to be with depth? Because that could be a problem. Would you not agree?
I don't. I don't know the answer to that. And they haven't been able to pull away from teams yet in order to get some of those other guys in there. I think it looks like it's a 7-man rotation.
Well, I think that you're going to have. I think you're going to have a lot more depth at the post than you are at the guard position for sure. Right? You've got Abide and Ridgenall, and then you've even got Jacob Germany. We haven't talked a lot about Jacob Germany. I don't know what his role is going to be. He was pretty good at UTSA a year ago. I don't know if he's going to find his way into the rotation in the post or not. And of course, things can look significantly different at the end of the season than now. They're going to have, I think, an issue as the season goes on with depth at the guard position.
They for sure are. Colby Rogers is going to have to handle the ball. I mean, it looks like right now there are 3 of them that will handle the ball. So that's going to have to be, for a little while, what they deal with. All right. They're back in action Sunday against Friends. We'll get you that and all the other things on the schedule this weekend as we wrap up a Sports Daily. All right, that does it. Nice Friday, everybody. Thanks for participating, watching, listening, everything. You've got Jim Rome today. I'm just going to tell you about the special game programming here. So K-State basketball tonight, 6 o'clock against Bellarmine. That right here on KFH. Tomorrow, you've got K-State football against Baylor. Pregame coverage begins at 12. Butler football over on KNSS at 1 o'clock. You've got Sunday morning football, that Colts-Patriots game in Germany. That'll be right here with us on KFH, 8 a.m. 12 o'clock, Wichita State's men take on Friends on KEYN. And then Sunday night football coverage begins at 6:30. Jets-Raiders right here on KFH. I'll be on CBS Sports Radio Saturday, 11 to 4. If you want to find that nationally and tune in, listen in, call in, I'd appreciate it. Fellas, nice Friday. We'll see everybody next week. Tommy, we'll see you Monday. For Chad, Tommy, Paul, I'm Jacob. Have a great weekend, everybody.